Yo, Josh, how you
Hey,
doing, bro?
good man. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, let's go.
What's up, Isaac?
Not much. Where am I finding you right now?
In Tacoma, so just outside of Seattle.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, my wife and I are. You didn't know we travel full time, doing house and pet sitting, living life on the road in our tiny little Honda Fit.
Gotcha.
So we have all of our belongings and shit in there, and we go from like house sit to house sit, like taking care of people's pets and stuff. Usually from like month to month and city to city. So we travel through a couple different websites, and we do this as a way to travel, to live rent free, and to get an experience at each little spot and city that we go to. So right now we're trying to our goal is to be stationary in Seattle, like Tacoma area, for the next couple years, because we've been all over the West Coast for the last like year and a half, but we're finding a really home like position here in Seattle, and this is our spot for the time being.
Right. How has that
Yeah.
been? I've seen you spent a lot of time in maybe the San Francisco area as well.
Yeah, dude, it's been amazing. I'd love to talk about like the it's not van life for us, but it's essentially the nomad life.
Right.
And the things that it takes the thing that like Instagram and all these people like glamorize, but then they don't see the reality of all these other things. But for the most part, it's been amazing. Like,
Right.
I've always had a traveling soul, and I needed to get out of the Midwest. I'm sure
Yeah.
you anytime to any reason to get out. You're in Chicago right now, right?
I'm in Chicago right now, and full time I'm in Iowa, so I've
Yeah.
been in the Midwest all my life. So.
Yeah, you understand. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy that you're in Chicago. Why are you? What brings you there?
Same kind of thing. I've been operating my own business for the last kind of start of this year is when I've been really doing it, and I really didn't ever carve out a time for me to do whatever. So I put out a little budget so that I'd fly places every once in a while, and I can do my same little workflow in another area. So my buddy has a apartment right in downtown, like the river is right there, so it's super cool. And he's actually gone for the next few days, so I'm just staying in his little flat and just having a little...
You're doing what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
Just staying in people's places.
Yeah, just a different variation of what you do. But every once in a while, I really enjoy it. I'm a routine guy, so I can't do it like, all the time. But every once in a while, I like to get out. So it's been fun being in Chicago these last few days. But
Yeah. That's nice. Chicago's sick. Chicago's stunning. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, like, Chicago's been always like the city to go away from Minneapolis, or you're from Des Moines, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, Chicago is just like a creator's paradise that you can kind of like refresh because there's so much to see and do.
Yeah. It's been nice being like a walk away, just walking to the river, and then you don't even have to like take your camera out the first time because you live right there. You can just go on a walk the first time and then come back and get your camera out. I mean, it's just so beautiful, and the city's well like thought out and made and everything. So
yeah, it is. Have you ever been to like Lollapalooza or any of the festivals or anything there?
I've never been to the festivals, but I know where they're hosted at. It's just such a good spot to have a festival, dude.
Yeah, my friends and I used to go in every summer. We used to go to like Lollapalooza, and like that whole like Michigan Avenue. It was just like so scenic, and I always brought my camera. So yeah, Chicago's always a good time.
And then I'm a Cole Bennett fan, like his whole Lyrical Lemonade stuff. And I know, have you ever heard of him?
Cole Bennett, that sounds familiar.
Okay, so his brand is Lyrical Lemonade, and they make the music videos.
Okay.
And they also host, Chicago's just like their headquartered spot. So now they're starting to host their own music venue, music artists, whatever. And it's just been cool because like he does it all out of Chicago. And of course, I'm partial to him. You got to look him up. Yeah. Even their website is so sick.
Lyrical Lemonade. So does he mainly do like video content along with for like musicians or?
Right. So his brand started as like music videos and blogging about kind of the underground rap scene. And as he's built his company, it's been kind of more of a mainstream thing where he's bringing on bigger artists like Lil Yachty, Lil Durk, all those big characters in the rap scene. And they've just made this whole really cool brand out of it. Lyrical Lemonade, their mascot is a lemon. And then their logo's a lemon box. Their their events called Summer Smash, which is all around,
Sure.
you know, a nice smashed lemonade. Just a
Yeah,
super
that
cool
sounds
brand.
familiar. I'll
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
recognize some of the stuff when I look it up.
You've definitely seen it. It's just one of the most
Yeah.
thought out creative brands that I know of
Yeah.
nowadays. But that aside, it's just cool stuff.
That's
Um,
cool.
did you grow up in Minneapolis all your life?
Mostly, my family and I, like, we moved up when I was 2 from like Florida, and we luckily went up for like a better education,
Yeah.
which was the right move for sure. Even though the winters sucked, but it was definitely the right move. I grew up south of Rochester, Minnesota, which is
Okay.
a lot closer to Iowa. So
Right.
I lived in a super small town, just 20 to 30 minutes away from the Iowa border near Decorah.
Okay.
So like one of my best friend went to college there in Decorah,
Yeah.
Luther College, you probably.
Yeah.
And then my brother went to Des Moines. He went to Drake.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, grew up.
That's 30 minutes down the road from me. So yeah. Very
Nice.
familiar
Yeah.
territory. Yeah.
So you grew up in small rural Minnesota, way down there, pretty much like Farmville, you know, small town stuff like that, and just kind of grew up around. My dad was really a big like tech guy, and so he'd always bring home and tinker around with like broken laptops and computers, and to try and fix them up. And then sometimes that was cameras, and so I got to kind of like play around with technology and learn the things about them.
Yeah.
Even on like dial-up internet way out there, like I just spent, there wasn't much to do there for me other than like play some sports. But yeah, I found a lot of interest in like playing around with technology, and so like I've had tech jobs over the years.
Right.
But like that boredom kind of struck my interest in technology essentially.
Yeah.
And then from
How-
there, yeah, go ahead.
How was your dad involved in tech in kind of a smaller town?
He worked some like computer jobs just for like computer repair, some like customer service stuff, and just his general interest in it. And then he would like trade. He was a big trader, so anything he would trade for like a motorcycle to a laptop, he was always on like Craigslist and making deals and stuff. So sometimes he'd just come home with like a random old broken like moped or something like that, and we're like, what are you doing with that, man? Like, and so he would trade in like credits for like certain pawn shops for like fixing and cleaning the computers for these like pawn shops. And so like we'd always go in all the time and look and play around with like the tech stuff in there, and he was always just trying to find deals and telling us about like which laptop has better processing power and all these different things. And that's sort of his upbringing for technology that kind of like passed on to me. Yeah.
So did your interest for kind of like that background of tech come first, or did you like get your hands on a camera and then are like, oh shoot, I want to start taking photos on this?
It was definitely tech first. I was never really an artsy guy growing up. I was more into like sports, and then like I wanted to be like like a video game designer, just because I like video. I mean, I was a teenager. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'm like, oh, I like video games. I'll play video games and do that. And then I wanted to be a nurse. So I studied at anatomy and physiology, and then went to Mankato State to do their nursing program. And it wasn't for me. And like before, in high school, my buddies and I were big into like sketch comedy like groups, like especially like on YouTube, if you know like Smosh and those guys, like the old school like sketch comedy groups. And some of my friends were in theater and stuff like that, so we'd kind of act out and play these scenes, and that's when we really kind of got to play around with cameras, because we wanted to film and make these videos and also like edit them in like old Sony Vegas or Adobe Premiere Pro. And that was kind of like the jump start to getting familiar with a camera, was just recording really dumb videos with high school friends at like 480p, like the worst quality ever. Yeah. So that was my real start with the camera, but I didn't really have a huge interest until like the nursing thing didn't work out. So my interest was always into film. Like I kind of had that as a backup plan. And Mankato, Minnesota State didn't have a major in that. They had a small like minor, and their program for like video production wasn't very good. So I wanted like bigger and better things. It's always been like the trend from being a small town. Like I want to go out and see things. I felt trapped for the first like 18 years of my life in this small town. Like I want to get out. I want to see big cities. I want to travel. And then I transferred up to the University of Minnesota to study like film production and do video work for things. And that kind of transferred into photography. So it started with videos actually, and then it went over to photography.
Right. So when did you just start, like, when I look at your feed, it's street photography. When did that really start for you, obviously?
So I got a job doing, my first job was with photos was Skyway Theater. I was an intern for the music scene there for electronic dance music. And I kind of got that as my internship out of college. That kind of got me in the start of photographing like events and people, and like I loved it. It was I loved EDM music. I loved going and taking pictures, and from there, I kind of needed to build up my portfolio. And as an introvert, I didn't always want to like reach out to people and take portraits. I kind of wanted to do my own thing whenever I wanted to, and not be held back by scheduling things with other people. And so I would go out and I would just take like photos of Minneapolis, because I just lived in Minneapolis. Like there's cool things to take pictures of. So I went to like the scenic Stone Arch Bridge on the Mississippi and stuff like that. And like I still have like my mom has it framed somewhere in her place. But like one of my first photos was from like Stone Arch Bridge, and then I just like kept going out and practicing these like street photos, because like in the Midwest, like there's a big limitation with styles that you can do, I guess, when you're first starting out. So like either I'm stuck in a cornfield or I'm in the city, and then there's like 4 hours up to like the North Shore where I can get like scenic landscapes from like off the shore up there. But then I just like tried to go out after work like every other night to go shoot street photos. So I got a job doing like studio work for this lighting company, this LED lighting company, and I worked there for like 5 years. So that was like my first official like full-time job doing photo and video work, mostly like product photography, how-to installation videos. I hated the job. It was not for me. I was there for a long time, but my goal was to just keep expanding my portfolio every time I could get off work. So it was like 8 to 5, like the mundane work. It was still photography and video work, which I guess I'm grateful for. But after that, it was just like I would do anything to try and get out, especially when it rained, when it snowed, and like usually by the time I got off work, it was night. It was the night scene. It was like this night photography. So part of it was a choice, part of it was not, to go and only shoot night photos. But I liked the simplicity of when everything was dark, even though everyone thinks it's super dangerous. And, if you're a woman, it can definitely be. But like I'm this tall guy. And so it for me, it was like a simplistic way to have everything kind of like muted. And so like the lights being dark and being able to focus on little pockets of light really helped me kind of develop a process and a style that was a little bit more simple at the start than instead of being overwhelming. So that style kind of really stuck with me. And so I started to follow other people back at the time on Instagram that were doing street photography, and just kept reaching out to people and following their work, and just kind of started building up street photography by doing that. And then that's how I like just fell in love with it. And still to this day, like street photo stuff during the night, when it's raining, when it's snowing, was like always my favorite style. I just fell in love with it.
And 100% probably a little nostalgic by now, it just kind of feels like a part of you, especially going out every other night, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It was the grind back then because I went out at times that I didn't want to, but like I saw that it was like raining after work. I'm like, oh, dude, I gotta go. Like, I
Yeah.
can't. I'm not gonna go home and cook a meal or work out. I just said, screw it. I'm gonna go shoot because the photos and the process kind of just spoke to me, and so
Yeah.
I just went out. Yeah.
Yeah. How has the kind of Minneapolis scene been? You know, when you started connecting with people, did you notice a lot of other people doing that same thing, or is it pretty slim?
Well, it was kind of cool because at the time I realized people were developing their skills and through the process, and the street photography scene wasn't really that big in Minneapolis when I was starting out. And there was a couple of guys that I followed that switched over from like street photo work over to like portrait work or landscape work. There's a guy named Garrett that I used to follow. There's another guy, you probably, the Minnesota, what's his, Minnesota boy, Soda Boy?
Oh,
Have you heard of him?
Maybe.
That's funny. He started out doing street photography at the time, and we followed each other. And there's like, at least what I knew was only like a small handful of people that were taking these photos around the city. And so I followed them and kind of inspired each other. And then some of them like branched off into different types of work, and some just stopped posting. And then I just kept doing my thing. And then as time came on, I just discovered more people that were doing it, which at the time was nice because Instagram didn't have these like strict rules that they have now of like, you have to be in the algorithm or you're not going to be seen. So it was easy to find people just back in the day and find other people that wanted to do it. And so I reached out to some people, other people reached out to me, and then I just kept doing it and met some like the best friends that, I mean, I met you through it. So it's been like the best thing ever to collab with people.
Right. Yeah, just randomly showing up to Minneapolis for a weekend and being able to get together a group of like 6 or 7 people all excited and stoked to create was definitely an experience, you know.
Dude, I remember the night very, very vividly. How did you know Henry and Vlad and them? How did you guys meet? Because just know them.
That would have been the first trip. Well, I met Henry a few times. He came down to Des Moines. His dad kind of does an art show stand, and so he'll travel to different areas. So I met Henry in Des Moines. He would have been in a bigger group chat though prior, where just a bunch of like, you know, young 15 to 20-year-old creators were all in. One of them was called the Glizzy Gobblers.
The Glizzy Gobblers.
Yeah.
That sounds like a group. Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, your average 15 to 20-year-old group of creatives. So Henry was a part of that, and I knew he's in Minneapolis. And I don't know how we connected in order for me to meet him in Des Moines, but that would have been the first time. But when we met would have been the first time I went up to visit Henry. I crashed on a cot in his room, so just kind of cool how much hospitality he has.
And Henry's a man.
Yeah, he's very wholesome and genuine. You know, a lot of good things to say about him. And then Vlad is when I kind of met him through, because they kind of grew up together, Henry and Vlad.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've heard much about that. A dynamic duo to say the least. But
yeah, I saw their post together. It's so sick. Like their friendship, you can see how strong that is. And it's like it's so nice to see that.
Yeah,
because they're both super talented.
Right. Both super talented, both been together forever, and then just kind of getting a piece of that too, you know, coming up. And, you know, I'll get random texts every now and then saying that they're up to something and they invite me along. Just really two solid guys. But that would have been the first time I met them that time, or at least met Vlad. But so that's kind of how I connected with them. And then they're randomly just like, hey, let's get some guys together, you know? Why not?
Yeah.
I'll go into the city. So we probably got like 6 or 7 people there.
Yeah. I think my friend Malik that I had shot with before was there. Met, was it Edwin?
Yep, Edwin was there.
Edwin was there.
And then it was us 3 probably.
Yeah. It was cool. So whenever I used to go out, sometimes I would just say like, in times that I wanted to like hang out with people, be like, hey, I'm going to shoot downtown, like Warehouse District, if anybody wants to join up. And some people came that I didn't know, and I just checked on my messages, and I just met like friends that way. So it's been so cool. And like after like meeting you and like seeing your work, it was like, oh, seems like a guy that I would like totally be friends with and like hang out with. Like not only are like, you do like your passionate creative work, but you also like just seem like a good guy. And like,
Yeah.
for me, that's a valuable thing to have when you meet people that are like-minded
Right.
and are creators, because you have some creators that have their own path and that's for them and have different values, but then you see and you follow people and you see on their story, you see how they interact with other people and like in a genuine way. I was like, dude, I wish we lived closer. I wish I would have been in Minneapolis for a longer time, because I know we would have hung out again. But
100%.
like this is another way.
Yeah. And it's cool that you can somewhat portray that online, that with just the fact that we knew that just from our feeds and stuff, which is really fun. I mean, it's just nice to like, I don't know, I think of Washington and I'm like, hey, yo, I got a guy that is really cool that lives there, you know?
Hit us up.
I mean, it's so fun, but kind of, you don't have to dive into this too much, but when did you kind of get into kind of rooftoping a little bit?
Oh, yeah, of course. You know, I've done a couple of like interviews, but for certain companies, just for like a podcast for one of the websites I upload my photos to, and I knew they wouldn't ask like the detailed questions of things, but I'm here to talk a little bit more about that with you, which is awesome, because I can say a little bit more. I won't say everything, but I'll say I'll say a good amount to make it spicy, you know. But one of the guys that I followed that did street photos at the time, his name was Garrett, and I'd never met him in real person, but I was just following him and I saw him get on this specific rooftop in Minneapolis, and then I saw the views and I saw like kind of like a creative angle up there, and I was like, whoa, dude, I messaged him like, dude, how did you get up there? And he didn't reply, or maybe he gave me like a short answer, but he didn't tell me how he got up there. So I was super curious, because I was like, dude, this is super unique. And I've always wanted to make art that is super unique in a way that isn't very like traditional or follows a certain suit. And so I was like, dude, how did he get up there? And so I spent a long time on Google Maps, the 3D view, just searching like, where is this? I know it's near the river. Here's this thing. So I was kind of like geolocating stuff way back then to find out what roof it is. So I found it. I went up there, saw that there were like locks and stuff on it, and I was like, shoot, how did this dude get up here? Like, it didn't make any sense. And then so I'd followed some other street photographers at the time. One was from Chicago. JSN was his Instagram handle. I'm not sure what it is now, but he came into town one time and we kind of followed each other's work. And then he came in, he's like, because he did some rooftoping stuff and he did some like, they call them bandos. It's abandoned places, or like urbex, you know, urban exploring. Yeah. And he had done like a mixture of things, and he came into town. I was like, dude, let's meet up. I love your style. And he liked my stuff. I had at least some portfolio of street work, but never like rooftop exploring. And he came up and he kind of showed me a few ways to get around some doors. And he kind of got lucky. And then we got up to that roof that guy went on. And like, it was like this rush when you're up there. It was kind of like an addicting thing. Cause like I've kind of been an adrenaline junkie for at least as much as I could have been growing up, like playing sports or, you know, playing paintball or like bridge jumping into like rivers, like small town shit, like stuff to, like, you know, it tried and excite me. And so when I got up to the rooftop, we like spent a couple minutes up there, like hiding around, taking photos, and then went back down. And then we went over to like St. Paul. He ran on this little like bridge that I didn't climb, but I got pictures of him on it. And then I was like, holy crap, like this is insane. And I just started like looking up YouTube videos on like doors and locks and certain things to, I guess, bypass getting around certain doors. And then I had also like emailed some like the front desk people to see if like, hey, is there a maintenance guy that would let me, you know, get up and take some photos? I'd love to give you guys the photos just to use either for your website or if you want to make a print of it or whatever. And that worked for like one of them. But then I was just like, it's a little bit more fun to just go whenever you want.
Yeah.
Not be, again, like restricted by waiting on people.
Right.
And so it was like, again, it was kind of like trial and error of walking around while I was doing street photos and just like looking in a building and seeing what each building was like, what the traffic of that thing was like. And I could give a whole TED talk on this, how interesting it is. But like I was realizing and learning that like hotels and apartments were easier to get in than certain business buildings, because business buildings would close at like 6. So if I got off work at this time, I couldn't make it in time to get over there. And then like, hotels would be the easiest if they're like older buildings. So I would look on Google Maps and find like these older buildings that had a higher chance of these doors that weren't really that secure, or some honestly were just open. Like I didn't have to do anything. They were just open, and it just like anyone could go up there. And then I just like kind of learned things to sneak into certain buildings and follow people in during business times, and like check-in times for hotels are at like 3. The busiest times are like 3 to 5 for hotels. And you want to go into these buildings when there's the most traffic. You want to blend in essentially and act like you're there. So I'd bring dummy bags of like fake groceries and act like I lived there. I was like, oh, could you hold the door for me? And then it was just like, I got so confident. We would say hi to the security guys working there and the concierge. Like, hey, how's it going? I mean, because that's what you would do. You got to blend in. And so it was just a lot of like learning that and figuring out which buildings were best at certain times. And just a lot of trial and error. And some buildings that were, it's fun because it's like kind of like a cat and mouse game, but it's more so like a puzzle. So each building is different, and each building is different on different times, different days. And so one day might be a complete bust, or for an easy rooftop that I've been on before, it's like, oh man, it seems like security's uptight today, or like the vibe, you feel it, and you're like, there's just like, there's not a lot of people around. I kind of feel like it's not the right move right now. And it's a lot of like instincts and feeling it out. And then other days you could walk into a building that you've like, it's been super, super hard to get in, and you just walk in and it like everything works. Like luck is involved, skill and all these other things are involved. And so it kind of added this like element to photography. And when you got up there, it was like heaven. Like you have these insane views. And I did it like it was I don't do as much of it now. I have more responsibilities, but I'm still interested in. I've done a few over the past like year or so, but like not as much obviously. And you just like you're trying different things, and then when you get up there, there's certain guys that do it for the sake of just the adrenaline rush, and some people that you meet through that, you meet some like kind of crazy people, like guys that I've hung out with guys and done some roofs with guys that I'm like, I don't want to do that with these guys, because these are guys that like already have records or like want to do stuff. They're there to damage stuff. I'm there to go up, get pictures, go down without leaving any trace, not damaging property. I'm not throwing stuff. I'm not using graffiti. I just want photos and I'm getting out. Like no one was ever there. And so like when I would get up there, it was like this feeling of feeling limitless, and getting this unique angle. So it was like thrill, adrenaline, puzzle, fun, cat and mouse game. And then on top of that, like artistic photography. So I wanted to add that element to my photos, where some of the guys that did it for the adrenaline rush literally just wanted to like dangle their feet over the building or say like, look how close I can get to falling. I'm like, that's not my vibe. That's not me. You guys can do that maybe when I'm not here. I just want to take cool photos because those angles are amazing. You can get up there. And so like that is sort of how I just started doing it over the years. And then I met some of these guys, these younger guys that were doing it. Shout out to like Ian and Andrew and Sonny, these guys in Minneapolis. I think you'd love to meet them. They're cool guys. And I've seen them grow over the years, but I first met them and they did some roof topping stuff in Minneapolis, and I learned a lot from them, and then I taught them some things that I learned. So it was cool to like share notes of certain areas and buildings and stuff to go up on, and it was honestly, it was so much fun to do, to learn that way.
100%. Yeah, you kind of ran into like, you're a weird demographic of urbexing, you know what I mean? Like you want to ride the edge a little bit, but you also want to be responsible, and so that's kind of hard to find those same group of people. So I would feel the same way. I like that thrill, but like if you're doing stupid crap up there, I'm like, no, get me out of here, bro.
Yeah. So I luckily stuck with the guys that I knew and trusted, and then we tend not to like go in big groups because obviously that would draw a crowd, and then some of the guys like the same type of guys that would go up and like dangle their feet were dressed in like all black. And you're like, dude, you're just looking sus from the beginning. You got to walk into a business building wearing dress clothes and a business bag and stuff. And like these guys are wearing like hoodies and like a shady backpack. And like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of stuff to learn there, but yeah.
Yeah. So how much of that process of learning kind of that scene was your preliminary research versus trial and error?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I'd probably say like 15% of it was research and like recon. And then the rest of it was just like, you got to walk up into the building. And nowadays it's getting a little bit better. So when I was in San Francisco, which is super hard, by the way, they have their stuff on lock, as you could probably imagine. A lot of big tech companies, a lot more like homelessness there, so they don't want certain traffic going in and out. So it's a lot more locked down. But I would essentially go to Google Maps, go to 3D view, and look at like older buildings, and not always like the tallest ones. A lot of the best views actually are from like the mid-tier ones that you can get up, and then you can get below. So you can get like the Capella Tower or Wells Fargo, these big huge buildings in the background, and then I look for older buildings. I would look up like, is it like a business building, is it an apartment building, looking for their hours of business during the day, and then like nowadays you can like drop pins on like Street View and get like a little bit more updated of what the outside looks like, and then in certain modern hotels, you can drop pins inside and you can do like a 3D view of the lobby. And so I would do that, and I would like, I would take notes. I'd be like, okay, this is the Hilton on 43rd. And when you walk into the main entrance, the elevators are to the right, or the elevators this way. And then sometimes I look up on YouTube and there's like, I go like deep down the rabbit hole sometimes. And some guys would post like these really like weird like elevator guys who are like, I love this oldest elevator. It's from 1974 and it's in the Hilton on 43rd. And they show themselves like riding up the like train guys, you know, but like with elevators. And so I somehow learned some things about elevators during the process of trying to find out if it was easy to get to these rooftops or not. And so like sometimes these guys, or even the photos on like Google Maps or images, would show if there was a key card needed to use the elevator, or, you know, which there was a YouTube video that I saw like in Chicago of a guy pressing a floor that wasn't lobby level. All the other floors were locked that you needed a key card for, except for like level like 11 or 13. So when he clicked it, he didn't, like, nobody used a key. It was doable for some reason. And then I went there and it worked. Like all the other floors were locked, and then the floor 13 worked. And I was like, holy crap, it actually worked. But most of it was like dropping in that little guy and doing 3D view, if possible, of the lobbies, and like, okay, concierge is to the left, and then elevator to the right down the hall. And what I wanted to do was, to the best of my ability, walk into that place acting like I knew I was there, and walk straight to the elevators. Like that's my goal. Just get straight to the elevators, either ride up with somebody that has a key, use it if there is no key, or sometimes what I've even done was go into the building, get in the elevator, and wait for somebody either come on. So the door is closed, but I'm sitting there on my phone pretending like, oh, I forgot to press a button, or like, oh, I forgot my key.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'll just sit in there, and then the elevator gets called up to a floor.
Right.
So nobody on like the ground floor came into it. I'm still in the elevator alone, but I know somebody up on like the 15th floor called it up.
Right.
And so I would just wait and for it to be called up, and then I'd just get off right away, and they'd get on. So we'd just like switch.
Yeah.
And it was like tricks like that where you go in and you kind of like, a lot of it kind of depends on luck and timing, really. So that was part of the learning process. But most of the time it was just trial and error. I do street photography like around the building, and then I kind of see the traffic flow. I kind of look in through the windows and see where the concierge or security is, and then try and figure it out from there. And sometimes I'll just like feel confident that day and just walk right in and do it. And then other times you'll just, feel it out and be like, oh, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, no, this isn't the time. This isn't the building. Maybe I'll come back to it another day. But most of it was, just walking around, kind of scoping it out, feeling it out, as you would say.
Right.
So,
Worst case scenario, you got 4 or 5 cool street photos on the outside of it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
you can never go wrong.
And it sounds like you go back, you know what I mean? So it's not a waste of a trip. So how many times have you gone back and then it's just better and then you're able to do it?
Oh, plenty of times. If I know the layout, a lot of times there's like, it's kind of like just doing street photography or any photography in general. You go to spots and you revisit them all the time during different lighting environments with different equipment, different mindset. And you shoot the same spot over and over because it's a different day, it's a different feeling. And it's kind of like the same way with trying to just venture around and explore these buildings, which was fun because sometimes there's like a abandoned hotel or abandoned restaurant on the top of a hotel in St. Paul that's super cool. So not all the time is it rooftop stuff, but urban exploring through other parts of buildings. And like I was in Nashville one time and I got into the stairwell to this one business through pure luck of just having the elevator called up and like going straight to the stairs. And I just went up and then like there's like these penthouse floors that are abandoned, like just this fully open, fully abandoned. So like I was thinking about like doing like creative shoots up there, like just getting like somebody to do portraits and stuff with, because like just exploring that itself was really cool.
Right.
Not only just for the rooftop views, but the history of buildings and architecture and how it was designed, and figuring out like how the stairs are connected to a certain floor, or what the event room looks like if it's abandoned. And there's like also in St. Paul, because it's a lot of history there, there's like a abandoned like theater and theater seats up in a different hotel, and like these curtains, and then they've got like this crazy view like of the skyline, and you're like, dude, this is like better than the roof actually. The roof sucks, but this is way better. So there's a lot of elements to that are just super interesting, that aren't just about like, oh, let me go post up this cool pic of like my Nikes on this roof, or like look how dangerous I am. There's a lot of like actually cool parts about it that I found interesting.
Right. And it's a great way to learn a town. I mean, you know what I mean? Like Minneapolis on lock more than people that have lived there for 20, 30 years because they just never explored it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was going to like apartment buildings knowing more than the tenants that lived there. And I have this one buddy, shout out to Torin. He's in he lives in St. Paul, but I met him just through street photo and urban exploring. And he is like this encyclopedia of information on architecture and buildings and history. I went to Chicago with him 1 year, and he was just like, we got to go to the old Macy's that was built in like this time, and like it was beautiful. And like he knows all like, yeah, it was like a French designer that did this or that. And it was like he made exploring fun and like informative in a cool way. And he wasn't one of those guys that would do it for the clout either. He would just do it because he was super interested in the buildings themselves a lot of times.
Right.
Yeah.
Dang. And what's cool is I never got to the point where I'm like, oh, I want to look into, seeing how other people find ways into these buildings and not so
Yep.
legal ways, sometimes. But I never
Yeah.
got to that point. There's a lot of parking garages and hotels that you can get up really easily without,
Yeah. Yeah.
they'll say no soliciting, but if you're there for like 10 minutes,
Yeah.
whatever.
A lot of windows on like staircases of hotels and stuff like that you can take photos on.
Right.
And it's always fun bringing friends that I trust, because they're like, dude, you should bring me up to one. I'll take them to like a rooftop that is definitely really cool. That's a lot less risky than some of the ones I would do either alone or with some of the guys that have like more experience with that. And so like showing friends certain views of the city that they wouldn't have seen before, and like seeing their reaction and bringing them to an experience like that, like with when we met and with some of the other friends, was super awesome, because I want to share that experience with some people, the people that I trust at least, because it's awesome. It's really cool to see a different part of the city and create in those areas.
Yeah, and create vivid memories. I mean, both me and you remember that night like crazy. And for someone that doesn't even do photography, they won't even think about trying to find a view like that. So anything like that replicates the feeling that you'd get from one of those more sketchy ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, it was kind of like a game back in the day, in the earlier days of the urban exploring, because some guys that I even collabed with were like, it was like a game of like, I'm not going to tell you how to get up there because I want to save it for myself for personal reasons. And then sometimes like lying about spots, like, oh, this spot isn't doable, but like it was, but they would lie about it. And then some people, like understandably so, not posting spots of like the really hard ones, because you don't want that spot to bring more traffic of people that would urban explore. Because like, as far as I knew, like I knew probably like 10 to 12 people in the Minneapolis area that would do it, but you don't want to bring people that you don't know, or like motivate people that you don't know to come up to that roof and like ruin it because they don't know what they're doing. And they're dressing sketch, they're damaging property, they're doing stuff like that, they're leaving a trace, so that the people like us that are trying to respect the area and just get up and go back down, like we tried our best not to post the risky ones, and just post the ones that were like a little bit easier to do, or the ones that were just like locked down and you couldn't do them anymore, in like protection to that roof or that area. It's some of it in protection, and then some of it was like selfishness from some people that were like, no, we're not going to tell you to get up there. Like, dude, we've explored so many things together. Like, you can trust me. I'm one of the guys that doesn't actually break anything when I go up there. Like, so yeah, it was a lot of kind of trusting the right people at the right time, and then just figuring out a lot on your own, which sometimes is scary, but sometimes it's just, you bring maybe a buddy to look out for you. You watch each other's backs. You're in a group of like 1 or 2 people, sometimes 3, maybe at max. And just explore. Or if it's one of the easier ones, you just bring a group up like we did and be like, yeah, it's a hangout spot. So
we walked in our like, kind of street clothes and with our backpacks. We just went up the elevator. Like, we would have been a terrible group to take on a bigger one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, luckily that I scoped that one out. I did it before, and like it was in a more busy area of downtown. It was a cool street, and like it was probably a weekend, wasn't it? So it was like we're just a bunch of guys just going to hang out at somebody's apartment, just use that. And I was like, yeah, I'll just bring you guys up.
The urban community is a hard one. You want it to grow, but you don't, and it's hard to trust people. Like, that's a hard one. For sure.
It is. You really got to go with the right guys and build the right like relationships with some of these guys. And so it was cool meeting people, not just from the Minneapolis area, but like they would go out and venture with some guys. So I met a guy in Portland who's awesome. Like, he's super cool. And we did a couple like buildings together over there, which was awesome. Like, a super cool way to meet other people who are like, and he's a good photographer too. Like he likes doing all types of stuff. He loves doing film.
Yeah.
So it was a cool interest to talk to him about. And like when we were up there, he wasn't really taking a lot of photos. He just wanted to like talk and meet and like hang out. And a lot of times it is like that. We're just like, well, let's go up and, just kick back on this sunset roof or something like that and just hang out for a minute. We know it's safer, and then we'll just go out and do street stuff. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
It's such a relaxing thing. Even on the top of this is just like a patio area, but it overlooks like downtown's right there. I'll send you a picture of it. It's beautiful. Actually, I just posted today. You'll saw that.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I saw the first one of like the lower tier, I think. I was like, damn, that place looks nice.
Oh, it's so nice. Everything that I do in a day in my hometown, it's all just in this building, and it's better. You know what I mean? You get a skyline view and everything. Oh, it's such a beautiful feeling being up on a rooftop.
Yeah.
No
Do you feel like it's hard to create certain things in like Des Moines, either street photo wise or building up clients or what have you?
I describe it as we're not really there yet in Iowa. There's people trying to do it, but not really doing it. So for finding clients for my business, like, people in California, they're like, you're here and I'm going to get you to 100%. Well, in Iowa, it's like, all right, let's take a little pause. Like, you're way down here. Let me get you to getting started with social media. So it's been pretty easy getting clients up. So I'm not too worried about that. But with creating, you know how it is. Like, you want the cool landscapes and stuff. You had to travel north.
Yeah.
I really got nothing cool around me. But that's kind of what you learn, that like, hey, you live in a place that not a lot of people are photographing. And so it's cool to walk around and just kind of photograph the mundane. So just depends how you look at it. Like, views, not really, but I've taken a ton of cool photos in Iowa. It's just how you look at them.
Of course, yeah.
So it's been pretty easy.
You always find something. You could be that guy,
right?
To like network with people and to work with people. And so you're doing like social media, like managing and
So I do stuff reoccurringly for 3 clients, all doing very different things. And what I've found success with is just doing social media stuff for the 3 of them. I love the business side of things. So a lot of people, they get a turn off when it's like, ooh, social media content. I don't mind it at all. So if I can do weeks like this independently and doing my work while I'm here, like that's perfect for me. And
that's so cool.
Scaling that. So it's been really good, but definitely not for everyone, man. But it's been fun.
Yeah. If I would give advice, I would say just keep traveling. Yeah. Keep doing that. Like, keep trying to network in ways that you can, like organically, and like the right people will come. And like the mind refresh and the body refresh from going to a place while you're young is like, dude, it's a soul fulfillment essentially. And
So with what I got going, I'll be able to go somewhere for about every 2 months. So if I hold that up, that's 6 good vacations a year. So it's plenty.
That's great.
Me,
So that's a good pace, because you said you like routine. So like, when you can travel and when you can't. Yeah.
But another thing about the routine thing is right now I'm a little bit uncomfortable traveling. Like, it puts me off for a day or two, which is really normal for a lot of people. Yeah. But I'd like to be able to be on the move and be my best self. So like practicing and like doing these days and trying to hold the same routine has been really helpful too. So it honestly helps my routine as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you can be grateful for it too when you get back to it. Like, one of the things while being on the road has been like the routine is so different every month. And the moment that we start getting used to a routine, a few weeks in, where we have like 3 days left and we're moving on to the next place. So it's you really have to like adapt and adjust from each house sit with like the routine of the animals and when they wake up and when they want to go on walks and when they get fed, to going out and exploring certain parts where the grocery store is. The gym for me has been a kind of a difficult one. So we do Planet Fitness. Yeah. Just pay for them out, and we're just going to different random Planet Fitnesses all over the country. And sometimes it's like a 30 to 40 minute drive.
Yeah.
And it's like super long. And then other times, like here, I'm like, I'm smiling all the time because the gym is literally like 3 minute drive. Yeah. I'm like, oh man, that that's it's helped me being on the road like know what my values are and what I appreciate, and living close to like a gym or like a park or something like that is something like, oh man, that's like in my needs and wants in
Yeah.
life is to be near that.
Yeah. Talk to me more about you and your wife's decision to kind of
Yeah.
start nomading.
Yeah.
Did you go into it knowing like, hey, this house sitting thing will help us be able to fund this, or how did that work?
So she kind of adopted me by doing it. So we originally met on a camping trip up north by the North Shore through one of my best friends. He had met her like at a wedding, and we went up to the North Shore, and she's originally from Bemidji, Minnesota. Shout out to my wife in the other room. And she was living nomadically like a few years before we met. And so I met her, and she was living out of her car, and she had everything in there. And I was just like super interested about that lifestyle, because like there was van life, and then there were, there's like living out of your vehicle. And she was doing that, and she was doing like house sitting and pet sitting for certain clients, that people that she already knew. And then she was like, how can I do this more often and kind of like stay in these places? And there's a website, like Trusted House Sitters is the name of the website that we use. And there's a couple other ones too. But like you apply to some, and you can see like what area they're in, the pictures of the house, the animals and all that. We're like, this is like, it's like a Airbnb, except it's free, and you just have to take care of like the house and the pets and stuff. Like you definitely have responsibilities. It's not like a vacation every time you're doing it. So like you have to be like, especially when you're in somebody else's home, like you don't want to mess anything up. And luckily we've been really good at that. And so we've built up like a big reputation on the site, where we're getting requests from a lot of people from like all over the country, because this is how we travel. And so we'll have people from like Nebraska or Florida be like, hey, we saw your profile, we see that you guys are one of the top people, can you like come house sit for us? We're like, sorry, we're booked for the next couple of months, and we're on the West Coast. But we just I decided to, I made the biggest jump and decision of my life, when it's still one of the best, was because I was working a real estate photography job, which I loved, in Minneapolis, but I felt stuck in at least the apartment that I was in, even though it was with my best friend and everything. And I felt like I needed to get out of Minnesota at some point in my life within the next couple of years a couple of years ago. And like we had met, my wife and I, through that trip. And then I was like, while she was on the road, and we were following each other on Instagram, I was like, I would love to come out and like sample a trip like in Oregon while she was out there. And this was before we were dating at the time. And essentially our first date was a week in Oregon together, traveling around, living within her car, like going to these places I was photographing. And like that was like the true testament of a first date. If you can travel with someone
Right.
for a full week traveling, then it's like you can do anything. And so like we just like, it was just like a strong connection there to her and to the lifestyle. I was like, this is exactly kind of what I was looking for. And I have a partner that I can trust and do that with. And so I had made the decision, like, okay, I'll try and plan out the next couple of months to, notify my work, like, hey, I'm gonna leave and be homeless essentially, but live in a bunch of different homes. And so I just made the commitment to myself and to her, like, I want to do this. I want to make this work. Let's like hit the road together and do this. This is something that is just, I'm young. We're both young. That I'm inspired to do things. And so I just started getting rid of all of my stuff in my apartment, which took like a month and a half. Like every time I get home from work, I'd get rid of something else, go to Goodwill. Luckily I was near a couple blocks away. So I was just like, so much of my clothes, so much of my stuff, getting rid of like 90% of it and just keeping like the bare minimum. And that was one of the best things to learn, that you don't need that much. to live. And you've said it, like, you want to be kind of like portable, you want to move around and stuff. And I feel like you're that type of person, like you want to have the middle amount of stuff. And just it's so freeing knowing that you're not tied with objects, with certain things. Like all you need is your phone, your headphones, and your camera, and like your backpack, and you're just good to go, and you can go and do anything. And that was a great way to learn, like, oh, I didn't need all of those other things. I didn't need all of these clothes that I got rid of. Like, I don't miss those things at all. Some things felt hard to get rid of, like gifts from other people, but that's just a sort of like a me thing. But as you get rid of those things, you're like, wow, like I actually didn't need that. And now I know how little I need to be happy, and to just know what my essentials are, moving from spot to spot, living from home to home. And it's really just like, my camera, my wife, our dog, and like, that's it. Like that's what home is to me. Right. So it was just like a huge learning experience hitting the road and knowing these things. And I've also learned a bunch about different cities that we've been to, like San Francisco, San Diego. San Francisco we've been to a lot, which is like beautiful city, like one of the most beautiful cities I've been to, even though like the political climate's kind of off there and stuff like that. But like being in cities and living in places that you wouldn't normally go to, especially these houses are in like off the coast or like in the woods, and like they're not Airbnbs, they're not hotels. So you're getting like the actual experience of living in this neighborhood with like sometimes a community, and sometimes you're just out in this like beautiful cabin with this beautiful land and just dogs, and you get this nice routine of just walking out into this field in the morning, and it's just like you and the dogs, and you're like Little Dog on the Prairie or Little House on the Prairie, whatever that old show is. It's like you're sampling parts of life and a lifestyle. So sometimes we'll be in a like really busy downtown city like Seattle, and you realize like, this is too much, man. There's too many people here. It's too loud. It's not safe. Minneapolis was a lot better in terms of a lot of things, and that made me grateful for Minneapolis and the Midwest. Was like, no, it's a beautiful and clean city, and there's not as many shitty drivers as California. I had a lot of things to be grateful for Minneapolis, for how big the skyline is, how beautiful the city is. And that feeling kind of felt similar here to Seattle. So that's kind of why we're thinking about being stationary here. We are going to be stationary here for probably 2024 or the next coming years. But yeah, just sampling parts of each city and each lifestyle was like, man, like what a fun, unique way to learn about how people live in each location, and what it's like politically, weather-wise, vibe-wise. It's been one of the best experiences. So I would highly recommend like checking it out. There's like a bunch of other resources too, but with how expensive things are now for traveling, as you know, like I like that you're finding friends' places to crash at, because that's definitely the way. And if once we get a place, so you're welcome anytime. So
I appreciate that. I look for the very, very cheap tickets. This ticket, I caught a ride into Chicago. I'm catching a ride back. It's like $100 flight. So I'm like,
nice, yeah,
not bad. I go to Orange County and stay with some family, which is by Los Angeles County.
Yeah.
And that ticket is like, it's so cheap. It's like $150 round trip. I mean, it's
really
unbelievable. So yeah, I go for the cheap flights, but they get expensive real fast.
Yeah.
How long have you had Nomad in your bio? How long have you been doing this?
Oh, sure. Left in March 2020. Was it March 2021?
Okay.
Been doing it a year and a half. So by the next March, it'll be 2 years, end of March.
Yeah.
So yeah, left like late March, and it was a great experience, because I left when Minneapolis was really cold, still in March, and then went out to like Roseville, California, like near Sacramento, California, just straight into like 70-degree weather. I'm like, oh shit, like this. So I value sunshine a lot more. This is something that I definitely want, or at least non-freezing temperatures, was like just so nice to switch over to. And yeah, the nomad came into my bio kind of like right after that, because I needed to try and like, I guess, advertise like, hey, I'm not in Minneapolis anymore. I'm on the road, because I've still had people reach out to me, like potential clients that are like, hey, we'd love for you to shoot portraits or do this project. And like, I can't right now. I do have a lot of friends that are creative and great, so here's their profiles and stuff. So yeah, I've updated that, and now I can finally put like Seattle area now, I guess. Right. So I'll update my socials and my LinkedIn.
Right. So it sounded like, for this last year and a half, you've kind of been bouncing around more often, but maybe now you two have kind of valued like, hey, let's be here for a year or two rather than, a month or two.
Yeah, we've kind of burnt out in some ways, and like honestly say sometimes like financially, especially too, with just the cost of living in the first place and inflation, but also it's hard finding remote jobs for my field and for like her administrative field. She has a part-time one now, and I've just been doing freelance stuff. And we've been like surviving for sure, but now it's like the time to build some income.
Yeah.
And so I luckily have a lot of like cool upcoming projects for like 2024. But I'm definitely looking to try and get back into the real estate photography game. I love doing it. It's great money, and for being stationary, just to build up our income. And our goal is, next couple of years, be stationary, have like a studio apartment or something, or just, rent something super cheap, because we can live, literally out of like a Honda Fit. So we know how to live super basic with limited stuff, and live cheap, save money, build income, invest. I'm big into investing into stocks, assets, crypto, all that. And then over the next couple of years, just build that up, have a background. Maybe I'll have a potential remote job at that point, but I'll have enough income that we can travel eventually overseas and do the same thing, and just travel again. Sick. So build up income, then travel, and then see what happens from there. But yeah.
Right. No, that's sick. So would you consider like the house sitting kind of your main thing these last year and a half? Or has that been a really small part?
No, that's definitely been like 99% of it. Yeah. So like each one we'll try and book them out for ones that are duration long. So like some people might just be gone for a weekend, traveling for the holidays or something like that. But other people will be gone. Like these people are in like doing like a Europe trip. They were in London, and they were gonna go to like Greece or something like that as well, and like also on a cruise. And so it's obviously a lot of like older generation people that have the time and the income now to go and travel long term, which is awesome. But yeah, the houses will be like a month long usually, and so we'll be in a house in a really familiar spot once we get used to it for a while, and then depending on where we need to travel, we'll like we drove up from Sacramento 12 hours up to here, like Tacoma, but we stopped midway through, and we have like a Motel 6 that we like halfway through. So we'll drive up 6 hours, stay in Oregon. Sometimes we'll stay with friends in Eugene that we've met through house sitting as well. And we're kind of building up friends in parts, like in San Francisco. We have like really good friends there that we can stay with. Some people in Oregon, but other times we're just like either dispersed camping for the day or two that where we don't have a house sit, or just staying with friends, and then going back like full time. So it's like 99% of the time it's house sitting, which has been great. Yeah.
What pulled you guys to kind of, well, I guess you got a little south, but mainly you've been Pacific Northwest. Was that just an interest thing, or?
Yeah. It's just like we love hiking, we love nature. I'm somebody that loves rain, and it's gonna be a real test here, living in Seattle. How much? Yeah, I know. But like the comparison, I guess, that we keep telling ourselves is it's not as cold and demoralizing as Minneapolis or Minnesota was. Like we can deal with 30 to 40 degree weather through the winter, like no problem. The cloudiness is gonna suck for sure. But like we're dealing with that and worse in Minnesota, so we can deal with that until the summer. And for times that we can travel, we have friends, like we said, in sunny California that we can go down if we need that vitamin D and sunshine. So yeah, that's kind of the plan.
Last thing I've been curious about that I haven't touched on yet is talk to me about your involvement with like stock websites like Unsplash and Pexels.
Yeah,
That's been a huge part of you that you just
yeah.
no matter
Thank
what,
you. Yeah, you're great questions here. Love it.
Yeah.
So I was looking for websites to kind of like build my portfolio on, because Instagram wasn't it. Like it crops your photos.
Yeah.
Now like I have a lot more beef with Instagram than I ever did. But I was looking for different websites like for free to kind of get my work out there. And I started with stock photo websites, just trying to sell some of my work. But at the time in Minneapolis, I felt limited by like, you have to have approved for stock photo websites to sell stuff. You have to have like no advertisements, no people. You need property release forms. You need model release forms. You need all these things. Like, oh, no, that's just going to hold me back. So I found like 2 different free stock photo websites. You don't need that. But you can download like free full resolution photos like for free. And so I just started uploading to those sites. One was unsplash.com, and the other one is pexels.com, who I've become a lot more familiar with the Pexels, like even employees. Like I've got to meet them, hang out with them. They a good handful like know me through work, and I might have some potential work with them just from stuff like that. But I just started building my portfolio on these free stock websites to get exposure. And then from that, I have gotten so many different gigs and unique opportunities, and people like being redirected to my website to buy prints, which it's been rare. And sometimes I'll get like, there's a donate button on both of them, but like I might make, $5 to $20 a month through some donations. But there's so many gigs that I've gotten for like freelance work where, I've got one coming up where I'll luckily be back in the Minneapolis area for a couple times, shooting for like a bigger client in that area, where like I didn't sign an NDA or anything, but you would see the work if I'm like selected and I get these shoots. And some of it's like more stock photo stuff, and a lot of it's also like travel-esque, some of the stuff that they've already liked that they found on Unsplash and Pexels. And so I'll have these clients reach out to me like, hey, we've got some projects coming up. We have you on like the top of our list to go and shoot these things because we've seen your portfolio on these things. And a lot of these people that are sourcing the work, like the graphic designer was like, this is the best guy to do the job. And I was like, holy crap, that's flattering. Yeah. So it's been a great way to get my work out there and to get the right exposure with the high quality photos that I want to put out there, and not be limited by an algorithm or a crop factor or certain resolutions through social media. And there's also been like cons to uploading stuff for free, for sure. A lot of my work has been like taken and stolen. I've seen some of it on like Etsy, people trying to sell prints of it. Luckily the pros outweigh the cons, but yeah, there's been a lot of frustrating times. There's even been like, I've had a couple of art consulting companies reach out, and they want to use some of my work for some different projects, either like an apartment or hotels, which has been like great money. But I've caught one in Minneapolis. I'm not gonna say who they are, but like I've been working with them, but I don't trust them fully because they've used some of my work without telling me, and I've caught them. And so like one time when I was doing real estate photography in Minneapolis, there was a super nice condo in the warehouse district, and I go into it and I see 3 of my prints that they didn't buy for me framed on this wall, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding. I was proud and like super
No,
like
I get
happy, but very pissed off. Like I didn't know what to feel. And so I reached out to like the agent, and I'm like, who's the art designer? Who's the interior designer for this? Who sourced the artwork? And they're like, this person. So I emailed them and like, how many times have you done this? Like I wanted to call them out so bad. And but this one company has paid me for some, but I still don't know if I trust them. So I'm like, I wonder how many other places have done that, either in Minneapolis, especially because that's where most of my work is, or in other cities. And one from that same company, Henry found when he was touring apartment place, and he was like, "Dude, this is your photo, man. Like I recognize your work. This is you." And I was like, "Oh shit! Like I have people that recognize my work."
Yeah.
Like taking care of me or like, you know, looking out for me, and like they appreciate my work more than the person that's selling it to these places, and they're going underneath the table like through me to not pay me. So they're printing it out for free and then selling it to the apartment or whoever wants to buy it. That's just a shady thing to do. But all the projects that I've gotten from that exposure and through those websites have been tremendous, and I've been like just super grateful for.
Yeah. Talking about it feels wrong, but let me break this down. Terms of service wise, I can print out your photo for free for nothing, hang it on my wall, no problem.
Yes.
But I print it and then sell it as my interior design pieces. That's what you're saying is super shit.
Yeah, and it's been hard to realize. So like if you alter the photo, you can technically sell it on Etsy either as a digital file or as a print. So if you alter it, like put a shitty filter on it, you know, put something that like clearly has altered it, you could sell it.
Right. Ethically though, it all gets shitty.
No. Yeah. But if you don't do anything to it and then you put it on like a t-shirt, with you don't make any changes to it, you put it on a t-shirt and you sell that t-shirt, or you directly sell the digital file or like the prints of it like unaltered, then that is that's not allowed.
Right.
Through it. Like something has to be changed in that process before selling the actual work. So yeah.
I was thinking about it. I'm like, is that? And then I'm like, oh yeah, they're literally like in designing a place and then putting these on their wall. Like they made this really cool space with these local images. Like, yeah, you need to be a part of that.
Yeah, and it's like as a local company, like you gotta give credit. You gotta pay the people. Like your job is as an art consultant is like to help the artist. Like that's part of your job, and you're just like, nah. Yeah. That's like, come on. I can't tell them like what's right or wrong because clearly they're like adults and they're past the point of good morals. I would say I would call them out on that, but it sucks. But looking at it, you know, like seeing my work up there, I was like, oh wow, I fit this cool, really nice condo aesthetic and style, and like seeing it in an apartment place is it's something to be proud of too. So yeah.
No, it definitely gets you exposure. I would have deleted my account because I wanted to like put on prints or whatever. But like, I put out, you know, maybe a few hundred photos, and you get millions of views. Like I was on the whatever their weekly or no, their monthly feature a few times. Like it's a good feeling. There's a lot of misconceptions with that scene, but I definitely can see why the pros would outweigh the cons, you know.
Yeah, once you start, I have like 1,000 photos up on each now, but I've definitely been more selective of which ones I want on there. and which ones I'm like, okay, I could upload this later to like my website and sell it as a print, and then not have it be on like for free for releases and for download. So just being more selective of what I want to put out there for free. And some of it's gone to like good organizations and stuff that they've used, to promote. Like I've taken a lot of portraits of the animals and stuff that we've watched. So like bringing awareness to certain topics, and especially like I did some of like the protests back when, George Floyd happened and everything. So, well, it's a mix of a lot of different things, but definitely being more selective on what I upload now.
Right. It's a scene, like you said, like the opportunities are pretty sparse, far in between, but they are there.
Yep.
But it's a scene, you just kind of upload it with no expectations, and then things come. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Some photos I thought like, it's kind of, it's as an artist, you kind of release things that you're like, oh, this is one of my better photos, one of my best photos. It's going to get like either a bunch of likes or a bunch of downloads, exposure, and you're like, it's a dud. And then you post another one that you're like, oh, this is like my in the back of the catalog, but I uploaded it, and then like it just timing and everything, it just goes off. You're like, okay, I mean, that's cool. That's pretty awesome.
No, and I started a little bit. I was way younger doing this, but I started like altering what I'd take photos of because I loved that view count. So I took background photos. So I took photos of like a rumbly sand, and it's just a wallpaper photo, and of course it got millions of impressions.
Yeah.
So cool. But after a month, when you kind of learn that, how that algorithm works, you kind of like, all right, what am I really doing?
Yeah, where's my work going? I never truly know. You just got to do like reverse search with Google to see where some of it ends up. But yeah, it's been exciting.
But right when I got into the print scene, I'm like, all right, I got to delete my Unsplash because I'm going to start doing it now. But that was not the play. I mean, it could be the play, but it really wasn't the play, I like what you got going with it.
Thank you. Yeah. I say definitely a lot more of the prints that I've sold have just come from like local people, like in Minneapolis, friends, family, people just following me on social media. Not as much on the Unsplash stuff. And Pexels. That's just been other opportunities. But getting my work printed out, because I was doing it myself, which was like a lot of time and energy and cost with a printer and everything. And then just like trying to outsource it and get a certain company to print it out for you. And I've seen you've done a photo book, right?
Yeah, I did a few little mini photo books, not like crazy quality or anything, but just enough to set your stuff on a coffee table and be able to enjoy it every once in a while. So
how did that feel, setting that up?
It was good to do. My expectations are really high because I was really into the film photography YouTube scene. And of course, those guys have tons of connections to make them perfectly binded exactly the way they want.
Yeah.
And so I just dropped that expectation off. I'm like, I want to get my stuff on some pieces of paper. So I can
nice, dude.
So just being able to do that and look back at those memories. I mean, you know it best. When you look at and see something physically, it feels better than looking at it digitally 100%. So
yeah, absolutely.
It was really fun. But another thing with those stock sites is I feel like I only did Unsplash. I didn't find out about Pexels until earlier this year, but like they're really community focused. So it sounds like even with Pexels, like you've gotten in on some of that community as well.
Yeah, so they'll do meetups, and they'll host meetups, and I kind of just had one of the guys, Iram, shout out to Iram, if you ever listen to this, I send this to him. He reached out, and he was one of the community member or managers for the US based community. And so he was kind of finding people that could host certain meetups that were like they call them Pexels heroes, people that have just uploaded a certain amount over time. And people have a lot of work on their site. And like, because I was traveling and he saw like my Instagram and all that stuff, he reached out and asked if I wanted to do a meetup. And so over the last probably year, I've hosted like 3 or 4, like a couple in San Francisco, 2 now in Seattle, which has been awesome because I want to build a community here now. And that's one of my goals over the next year or so, is to build up a photo community of people that I did so like in Minneapolis. and
Yeah.
I kind of have a platform to kind of like expedite that process now. And then I'll also do it, just on my own time too, not like having people sign in and stuff like that, but just reaching out to people that I see their work. It doesn't matter their size of their Instagram account. If they want to go and take photos and they do street photos, like that's awesome. I just want to meet and connect and network with people and make friends. And
Right.
that's one of my I'm looking forward to the most of the next year, is kind of building a community here
Yep.
as well. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, it's one thing. I mean, there's no great way to build community nomading. That's probably one of the downsides that people don't really talk about. But
Yeah, it's one of them.
being able to sit down and find that is beautiful. Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's kind of your goals moving forward? I don't know. Just leave it open ended. What do you got?
Sure. Goals going forward, being stationary, trying to kind of build up a routine, build up a home base, build up yeah, there we go. Yep. build up a community as well, of photographers, of friends, really. Luckily my wife and I are introverts at heart, so we have each other to hang out with. If like they call it the Seattle freeze. I didn't know that was a thing. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's where like people moving to Seattle expecting to make friends don't. So I was like, what a weird. And it's like Seattle people are super nice, but it like it like could be an actual thing. But luckily I have a platform, multiple platforms to connect with people when I feel like kind of going out and hanging out with people and connecting and doing photo walks. Especially I'm gonna do a lot of photo walks with people that I can, and yeah, build up some income, kind of grind a little bit, the cringy grind thing, settle down for a year or two, and then kind of figure out what we want to do next after that. But yeah, build up income, build up community, get swole. No, but no, just keep maintaining health, because that's super important, especially as you get older. You want to just try and be as healthy as you can. And we're both like people that don't want kids. So we're just like, we want to travel, we want to do as much as we can and not kind of be held back by that.
Right.
So yeah.
Heck freaking yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Build a business, stay around, keep it up. I got some exciting things I'm looking forward to in the new year that
Nice.
can't necessarily speak on quite yet. I'm excited.
Yeah,
for
sure.
what I can, but
Yeah.
yeah, I love what I got going. It's just about continuing it and making it better.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like that's kind of what you want to do too,
Yeah. And it's nice seeing that you consistently put out work, like through your podcast and through
Right.
different media channels. Like I love seeing your name pop up. Like, this is a dude that just is so genuine and has cool stuff to talk about and show and to learn from. So
Yeah. I
that's always been great.
I appreciate that. And as I am on my own a little longer, I get more confidence to post more crap. So that's something
Yeah,
I'm looking
dude.
forward to doing. And this pod's been super fun. I always say
Yeah.
if they get 0 views, I still had a nice conversation with Josh, which is
Oh,
much
yeah.
overdue,
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah. We'll come back anytime.
Right. But obviously if you post 20 in a row, you're going to get views. It's just how
Yeah.
that works. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on and talking for a bit.
Absolutely, Isaac.
I usually go for around an hour, but there's just so
Yeah,
much
I was
crap to
looking
talk
at that. Yeah. Yeah, you can, if you feel like cutting anything, go ahead.
There's
but
nothing
I
to
loved
cut.
it, yeah.
It's all good.
Hell yeah. Great content all around.
Hell yeah, bro. Thank you so much. Take her easy, man.
Yeah, absolutely, Isaac. Great being on here.